What if we had a tool that would help encourage librarians, bookstores, and retail stores in general to learn more about our beautiful children's book and motivate them to add it to their ordering plans? The tool that does just that is called a one-sheet. Successful professional speakers use their version of it, successful actors use it, and so should we. And that is what this video is all about. Hi there, I'm Eevi, an award-winning children's author and ghostwriter over on eevijones.com and the creator of Children's Book University. I create videos specifically for children's authors, so be sure to subscribe so you don't miss my weekly videos. Not too long ago, I made a video sharing 9 tips on how we can get our beautiful children's books into a retail store or bookstores and beyond. Each of these tips I shared in that video are incredibly instrumental in helping us be successful in achieving just that. So if you haven't watched it yet, I went ahead and added the link to this video in the description below. It goes hand in hand with this video, because in this video, I'm taking this even further to hopefully help you even more with the placement of your book so you can get your book onto a store's shelf. So we'll look at what a one-sheet is, what we want to make sure to include to make the absolute most of it, where and how to exactly use it. And if you know me already, you know what I'm going to share with you in the very end of this video to make the creation of your own one-sheet an absolute breeze, so make sure not to miss it. Now, what is a one-sheet? A one-sheet is almost like a resume for our book. It's a tool that shares the most relevant details about our book in one single sheet that helps libraries and retailers see how our book may be relevant to their users and customers. One-sheets are often also called info sheets, sell sheets, pub sheets, or fact sheets. But no matter its name, a one-sheet is meant to be made up of one single sheet with information about us and our book printed on the front and back, not on 2 separate pages. That way we don't just save on paper, but we can also ensure that the information remains in one single place where no part of our details can get lost or be displaced. With so many children's books out there, we will always want to be as prepared as possible and appear as professional as possible. And perhaps even more importantly, we will always want to make it as easy as possible for retailers and librarians to choose our book over others. Because just as I shared in my bookstore specific video, we will want to remember that all sellers are out there to make a profit, right? And because all stores have limited physical space, when a store manager decides to use that space to display a certain product, they want to make sure they choose something where they can be fairly certain that it will sell. And that's what our one-sheet is meant to help us with. A well thought out and well designed one-sheet helps us stand out and positions our book properly in a very competitive environment. Now, given that we only have the front and back of one single sheet, what information should we include on our one sheet? In a nutshell, our one sheet should contain all the information that a potential book buyer would need in order to add our book to their inventory. So let's take a look at each of the elements, looking at the front of the sheet first, using one of my own sheets as an example. The first element is the title of our book, along with the subtitle if our book has one. Having a subtitle for our children's book has so many benefits and really no real drawbacks. I have a whole separate video all about subtitles, so I made sure to share the link to it in the description below. Here we also want to make sure we mention by whom the book was written. So in my example right here, I have the subtitle "Sometimes It Rains" in bold lettering up top, and my subtitle "Recognizing and Honoring All My Feelings and Emotions" and by Eevi Jones below that. The second element we want to make sure to share is an image of our cover. Here we could simply show a flat image, or we could use a 3D mock-up image to help it appear a bit more lifelike. For my cover image here, I used my own mock-up templates and stacked them to make my cover appear a bit more fun and creative. The third element we want to share on our one sheet are any awards our book may have received, along with some really short snippets of a review or two that we are really proud of and that might help the retailer make a decision whether or not to carry our book. And that is where my first ninja tip comes in. Whenever we share a review like this, we want to make sure we do 2 things. 1, we want to make sure to only share the juiciest part of a review. That way we can make sure to keep it short and concise. 1 sentence here is completely sufficient. And 2, we want to make sure we choose reviews by reviewers that are somewhat related or relevant to our book's topic. And so here we will want to include the reviewer's job title, because this will help us give our book even more credibility, especially if it is a title that relates to the topic of our book. These job titles don't have to be rocket scientists or marine biologists. Sharing a powerful review we received from a teacher or a nurse, for example, will carry just as much weight if those relate to the topic or overall theme of our book. For my Sometimes It Rains, I shared the reader's favorite seal it received for its 5-star rating, along with a snippet of that reviewer's review. And because this book is all about little ones' feelings and emotions, I also shared an excerpt from a review that my book received from a clinical psychologist. To learn more about the best book awards for our children's books, make sure you watch my separate video on that. I made sure to share it in the description below. The 4th element we want to include on our one sheet is, of course, the description of our book. Here, I personally like to use the book description I'm also sharing on my Amazon sales page or on the back cover of my book. And that's because this description is already optimized and drafted in such a way that it A, hopefully appeals and speaks to potential buyers, and B, shares the most important objective of my book. If you need help with the drafting and optimizing of your own book description, I went ahead and shared the link to my separate video on just that in the description below. It shares lots of examples and all the things we will want to pay attention to so that our description is concise while at the same time captures people's attention and interest. And the 5th and last element I like to share on the front of my one sheet is our contact information. It is our goal to make it as easy as possible for store owners and librarians to find us and perhaps even learn a little bit more about us. So here we can share information like our email address, our website, our phone number, and our social media handle. And if you don't have a website yet, but have been considering one, I went ahead and shared the link to my author website studio where we can set up our very own author website without having to pay any monthly or annual fees. I went ahead and shared that link in the description below as well. That takes care of the front of our one sheet. So let's look at the back side next, where we dive even deeper. The first 2 elements we want to make sure to include on the back of our one sheet are our author name and our profile picture. Here we want to make sure our image looks crisp, preferably with a solid background, meaning we don't necessarily want to show other people in the background or use an image that was clearly taken during our last vacation where we simply cropped out other people, right? At the same time, I always try to remind myself that I am a children's author, so we also want to make sure we are showing our playful side here or personality. That's an option most other authors do not have, so I love showing my silly side here, as you might be able to tell by looking at the covers of all my videos. So I want to stay true to myself and honor that side of me, which is why I chose this image right here. But again, this photo does not have anything else in the background, just me, and was clearly taken to be used as a profile picture. The 3rd element we want to include on the back of our one sheet is our author bio. Here we again want to keep it short and only share information that pertains to us being an author. I know it can be tricky sometimes to decide what we should be including here. So if you need more help with the writing of your own author bio, I have a whole separate video on just that as well. So I went ahead and shared the link to that in the description as well. The next element is optional but can be so powerful, and that's the display of any credibility markers we may have. Credibility markers are simply logos of places or news we may have appeared in or on. Now, here it is very important to remember that most new authors may have nothing to share here just yet. So don't be discouraged. Instead, use this as a motivator, something that energizes you to put yourself and your book out there for the world to see. This might take a while to build up. It took me years to collect my credibility markers, so be patient with yourself. Sharing just a few is absolutely enough. There's no need to include dozens of them. Instead, we'll simply want to choose a handful of the biggest ones we believe most people will know and recognize. So for example, the ones I included on my own one sheet are Forbes, Business Insider, Scary Mommy, and Huffington Post. And again, I chose those because I thought these are probably known by most who I'm giving my one sheet to. The fifth element we will want to include on the back of our one sheet are our book's most relevant categories. Including our categories is important because this will help the retail stores and libraries when it comes to where in their store or library they should be displaying our book, what section or what shelf, so to speak. Now, the biggest ninja tip I can give you here is not to use Amazon's categories. And here's why. Something not many authors realize is that Amazon's categories are not always the same categories used in bookstores and libraries. The book industry uses something called BISAC, B-I-S-A-C, and stands for Book Industry Standards and Communications. It is the globally accepted system for categorizing books. These BISACs are sent to retailers as a book's metadata and tell retailers the subject of our book and what genre and reading level it is. And so stores or libraries know where to place it on their bookshelves. BISACs let others know what our book is about and who would be its ideal reader. So in a way, where our book is being placed on a shelf can make a huge difference on whether the right reader finds it and whether or not it sells well. Now, what is important to remember here is that BISACs and Amazon's categories are separate. They are not the same. And because our one sheet is meant mainly for retailers or libraries, we will want to make sure to use BISAC categories and not Amazon's. So I went ahead and shared the link to the entire list of BISAC categories for you in the description below, so you can choose the best ones that are most relevant to your own children's book. I like to include about 3 showing the BISAC category thread as well as the associated BISAC code. The sixth element we will want to include on the back of our one sheet is our target age group. Sharing this just gives the person looking at our one sheet a really quick overall idea what age range our book might be speaking to the most. And it's really best to show a realistic age range here. Sharing something like ages 3 to 88 wouldn't be very helpful here, right? Because as I have shared in my age-specific videos before, it is very unlikely that 3-year-olds will enjoy the same books 11-year-olds like to read, and the other way around. So if you need help determining the best age range for your children's book, I went ahead and added the link to one of my age range videos for you in the description below. The seventh element we will want to include on the back of our one sheet is made up of all the details a retailer would need to actually order our book. So here we will want to share our ISBN, the trim size and page count, the retail price, and the publication date. And we will want to do this for each format we would like to share with the retailer. So on my own one sheet, I included all this information for my hardcover and for my paperback version for Sometimes It Rains. And finally, the eighth element we will want to include on the back of our one sheet is information pertaining to 1, our wholesale discount we may be offering, 2, where our book can be ordered, and 3, if there is a return policy in place. Traditionally, retailers receive a wholesale discount anywhere between 35 to 55%, where most retailers are accustomed to a discount on the higher end there. And sharing that our book is returnable is important. That's something retailers would want to know in case our book doesn't sell as many copies as they have ordered. So they would want to know whether or not they could return those copies. Now, here's a really important ninja tip. When we are sharing where to order our book from, it's really important that we do not tell retailers to get their copies from Amazon. I can't stress this enough. Remember, for most bookstores, Amazon is a direct competitor. So mentioning Amazon here would be a surefire way to shut down any conversations we might be having with independent retailers. To learn more on how to go about expanded distribution and the best way that goes beyond just selling on Amazon, make sure you watch my separate video on just that shares how we can offer our beautiful children's book without having to send retailers to Amazon. I've added the link to that video in the description below as well. So these are the main elements we will want to make sure to add to our one sheet. Now, there are of course other elements we could be adding here as well. For example, we could add a marketing section here where we would share what we have planned marketing and promotion wise for our book. For example, are we planning to go on a number of interviews, whether that's podcast interviews or perhaps even TV interviews? Or are we planning book readings? Anything that might pertain to the marketing and promoting of our book could be included here. here. I usually don't include a marketing section, mainly because our marketing efforts simply change too often and frequently. Here's what I do instead, and that is my third ninja tip for you, and it's a really good one. Instead of including this on my one sheet, I'm very strategic and intentional in what I say to the person I'm handing my one sheet to. So for example, as we are giving our one sheet to a store owner, we could say something like this. It was so great talking with you, and if you decide to add my book to your shelves, let me know when you're ordering it so I can make sure to share it on social media and let my network know that you are carrying my book. And I'd be more than happy to set up a number of book readings and book signings here in your store as well. Saying something like this will let retailers immediately know that you want both of you to win and that you know how important it is to bring foot traffic their way. We are letting them know that we're willing to do the legwork and that we want them to succeed as well. Now, besides giving our one sheet to retailers and libraries, where else could we use and share them? One fantastic place to share our one sheet is on our website, where we could add it either to our About the Author section, or if we already have one, we can add it to our media section, where we can make it available as a downloadable PDF file. Another wonderful and creative way to use our one sheet is to share it with our launch team. Now, if you have any questions regarding a launch team, what it is and how to create one, make sure to watch my separate video on that, which I have added to the description below. Here we could share our one sheet either as an actual printed sheet with those launch team members that are local, or we can send it as a PDF to those members who live further away. That way they can share about our book wherever they may go. Now, when it comes to printing our one sheet, something we want to keep in mind is how many copies we are preparing. And that is my fourth ninja tip for you. Whenever it comes to the printing of our one sheet, we will want to be more on the conservative side. So instead of beginning with a large number of copies, it's best to start small, because ideally our one sheet is meant to be a living, breathing tool that grows with us, right? Meaning whenever our beautiful book wins an award or we receive notable news coverage, we will want to add these things to our one sheet. Just like our resume, we will want to keep it updated. And so by having smaller print runs, we can make sure not to waste paper as well as our money. Now, in the beginning, I promised to help you create your very own one sheet to make it an absolute breeze. So I created a template for you, and all that's left for us to do is simply plug in our own information. I've shared the link to the free template in the description below. It's really easy to use, so I really hope that this will help you take your outreach game to the next level. Successful professional speakers use their speaker reel, where they share their topics of expertise and short clips of their best speeches and talks they have given that highlight their best performances. And actors use self-tapes or audition tapes to record their performance to then share and submit it to casting directors and other industry professionals. And we authors can use the same technique. We can use our one sheet to do just that, to highlight our book while providing all the information a potential retailer might need to order and carry our book. It helps us stand out from all the rest, it helps us be prepared, and it helps us to look and be more professional. I hope you found this video really helpful and that it helped you prepare your very own one sheet. Please give this video a thumbs up and subscribe if you haven't yet. It really encourages me to keep making free videos for you just like this one. Here's to sharing our beautiful children's book far and wide. Bye!